Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 15th, 2007 meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority, being called order at 2:37 p.m. May we have a roll call?
Authority members Draymond.
Here.
Mincy.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Razian.
Here.
Quintero.
He's here.
Yusefian.
Here.
Chairman Weaver.
Here. Have we your report?
The agenda for the May 15, 2007 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, May 10, 2007 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
At this time, the city attorney has requested I read a statement. It can be read again and again today if the mayor and the chair of redevelopment want to read it, but this is to inform the community that the Redevelopment Agency, Housing Authority, and council meetings of May 22nd, 2007 will be canceled. Some members of the council who also serve on the GRA and Housing Authority will be attending the annual International Council of Shopping Centers convention in Las Vegas, scheduled for May 20th through May 23rd. And as a result, there will be no quorum for the meeting scheduled on May 22nd. Only a limited number of items were forecasted for this date, and recently, no items have been scheduled. We urge you to continue to check the posting agendas or the website for the items scheduled for May 29th and all upcoming meetings. And just so everybody knows, I'll be acting as Mayor Pro Tem while my colleagues are up there gambling, I guess.
With your money?
After. Not my money.
I thought you were giving us your credit card.
No way, Jose. I'll just be here changing everything in the city while you four are gone.
Mr. Chairman,
Give me that opportunity, I won't have to answer to anybody.
Mr. Chairman, I move 4A.
I'll second that.
Wait, we haven't got to ask
Oh,
you
that's
that
right.
in the
He hasn't
record.
even read that. He hasn't
That
read
was
it
just
into
a
the record.
statement.
Oh, I was trying to move things along.
You better listen.
You're going to take over 2 done when we're gone.
Why not?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3. No, we can't do it. Okay, next, please. 4.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is approval of minutes.
I move 4A.
Moving to second. Minutes will stand approved as submitted. Next, please.
Next item is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the Housing Authority may question or respond to the speaker. There will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff through the Executive Director for investigation and report.
I have no cards or communications closed. Next, please.
Is there any authority member or staff comments?
Seeing none. Oh, Mr. Yusefian.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Last week I took an opportunity to go down to the Madeline's office to basically commend Peter Zovak for a very nice job he's doing. I know his responsibilities has been increased and he's got a lot more to do, but he is doing exemplary work by making sure that the projects that the Housing Authority is building, it's moving along very rapidly. He finds solutions for challenges that come along. Anytime you build anything, you end up having challenges to deal with. And Peter has provided exemplary service, and I believe that when a staff member goes beyond call of duty, I find it to be part of my job and my duty to basically announce that to the public and say, "Attaboy, you did a fantastic job and you deserve commendation." So that's why I wanted to do this also publicly. I did it in front of his boss, so I just wanted to do it in front of my colleagues to know that he's doing a very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next, please.
Mr. Chair.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Stand adjourned. 2:40.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Glendale Redevelopment Agency meeting of May 15, 2007. May we have a roll call for the agency, please?
Agency members Draymond.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chairman Yusefian.
Here. May we have your report, please?
The agenda for the May 15, 2007 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, May 10, 2007 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
What's next, please?
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a motion? The minutes will stand approved as submitted. What's next, please?
Next is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the redevelopment agency may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff through the executive director for investigation and report.
I do not have any oral communication cards. The oral communication will be closed.
Wait, you do.
But this is not oral communication. It's on the project. Wilson, Maryland Development. Oh, sorry. It's not an agenda item. I do have one. Oh, sorry. So I thought it was about the other project. All right. Oral communication is open. Your name for the record, please.
My name is Arnie Roethlisberger.
And I apologize again.
That is no problem. My name is Arnie Roethlisberger, and I represent Comar Investments, who is interested in developing the site at Wilson in Maryland. And the reason I'm here today is just to offer a few comments. I also want to offer some praise, ask some questions, and make some requests here. The first item would be the praise. I want to thank you very much. We at Comar Investments really appreciate the openness and the discussion that occurred at the last meeting of the redevelopment agency and your candidness about what went on at the closed session. And I also want to thank the city attorney's office for providing us with the written information which we requested on a very timely basis. I wanted to let you know where we are at since we last spoke with you. And Comar Investments has gone ahead and is moving forward with its proposal. We have completed our construction cost analysis. We have completed all of the architectural schematic plans. We have submitted those to the Indigo Group, and they have approved of those. We have completed our pro forma, and we have negotiated both franchise and management agreements with the Intercontinental Hotel Group, Indigo. And as part of that, we paid a $73,000 application fee. We expect to have the completed proposal ready for submission to the city no later than June 6th of this year. What we would ask of the agency today is we would ask that when our proposal is ready for submission, that the staff be directed to formally accept our proposal and to commence their internal review and a cost analysis as you normally do. The reason for this request is simply that we want to be on an equal playing field with the Amity Group, and we would like to have the redevelopment agency have both proposals in their hands to evaluate concurrently, rather than just putting us on hold until after you look at the Amity Group proposal. So we would like a reply from you folks as to this request. I have set this forth in a letter to Mr. Starbird as well. The other thing that I would tell you is that we do have representatives here today, and we're prepared to answer any questions you may have regarding the development. And then my last question to you folks is, do you have any additional information since the last meeting as to where the proposals stand? If you'd be willing to comment on that, we would certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Najarian.
And I believe it was last week or perhaps 2 weeks ago, that we voted to waive the confidentiality.
Last week.
Boy, it seems longer.
It was May 1st.
Has mayorship been that hard on you?
It was actually 2 weeks ago, May 1st.
So my question is, are any of the documents that were submitted in writing by the Amity Group to us for the closed session review, have they been transmitted to the Comar Group?
I believe they have, yes.
Okay, so they have everything, aside from any of the discussions that took place and the subjects that were discussed, the actual documents that were provided to us have been provided to them as well.
I'll turn to Ms. Van Meiden, but I believe so.
Yes, agency member Nigerian, we did provide the letter that was sent to us from the Amity Group to Comar Developments Council.
So we're all on the same playing field at
In
this
terms of
point.
the information.
The information.
that was, provided from Amity, that's correct.
And should anything come from Comar, I see a couple of hands here. Should anything come from Comar to us, is that in any way privileged, should the Amity Group request to look at it? Let's say there's a pro forma, obviously, that's the road we're going down. If they said, can we take a look at the pro forma, is that available to them?
It, in fact, would be public record. That would be something that the agency would retain and the staff would retain in the ordinary course of business. I've had a brief discussion with council concerning issues that they may have with respect to confidential financial information that may be trade secreted or otherwise privileged, and that would be a decision they would need to make with respect to what extent they would want to include that information, or to the extent that the city attorney's office, in exercising its review of those documents prior to release under a Public Records Act request, would decide that it may be privileged or confidential in some manner under the evidence code or otherwise protected as trade secreted information, et cetera. So we would go through that analysis with respect to the information provided to us.
For the non-privileged, non-proprietary, non-trade secret,
Would be released.
that would be released.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Lansing.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, just to clarify, we do have some documents that are business-related documents that were not requested of my office and were not transmitted. I believe Ms. Van Meiden is referring to the original letter. The pro forma and numbers, if you will, that you asked the Amity Group to provide as part of our analysis has not been either requested or transmitted.
But it has been provided to the
It
city.
has been provided to us.
And I might add, it's still under evaluation, and will be under evaluation for probably several weeks.
And that's the question that I want to ask is, in the past, we have not made performance that are under evaluation public. Generally, that items become public after our consultant has an opportunity to talk to the provider and go over the numbers, if there's any modifications, any changes. But when it becomes finalized and then it comes to us for decision-making, then that item becomes public. So am I hearing, is that what the direction we're going to go, or they're going to be privy to every single document that is given, regardless of whether or not is work in progress?
Chairman Yosefi, without going into too much detail, and given that this isn't an agendized item, I would respond generally that with respect to pro formas that typically come in and may be in a draft form, we don't release draft documents that we may not retain, and that is why we usually release that information after it has been vetted. And it is through administrative and review of various drafts of that pro forma.
And that is typical with everyone, regardless
correct.
whether it's their pro forma or
Anybody's.
Mitty's pro forma or Joe's pro forma, so they're all going to be the same. Okay.
That's the same answer for all.
Mr. Starby.
I was going to add, under normal circumstances, irrespective of the nature of the document, that we wouldn't normally have a matter be a public document until it's been distributed to you. In this case, that isn't the case, and we're still evaluating it prior to making it available to you and making a recommendation. I think it might be good at some point to have some clarification relative to the council's or the agency's determination that you wanted to forego the confidentiality from the closed session that gave rise to last week's discussion, whether or not you want that to apply with respect to every aspect of our going forward with the Amity Group, because frankly I think it puts us in a bit of a difficult situation if we're having to essentially negotiate, evaluate, and discuss business terms on a project, some of which might be proprietary, in the public fishbowl. That just is a rather unique circumstance to place Amity in and to place us in. But that's a decision the City Council can make, and certainly Amity would want to weigh into that relative to any proprietary information they might be required to provide.
And we would advise putting that on the agenda, reporting waiving the confidential privilege under closed session after you have a closed session is one thing.
Right.
Having this item pop out during oral communications and then discussing it would be, in my view, taking action
Right.
inconsistent with the Brown Act. We need
I
to get it
wasn't
on the agenda.
suggesting that you do that. What I was suggesting was that discussion of the broader release of information is something that I think we'd want to have direction from the agency on. We certainly wouldn't presume that your waiver of the confidentiality for that previous closed session would necessarily apply to this whole process. The second thing I thought I might note is the comments have referenced application proposal, which seems to imply that they're still continuing to follow a process. I think for the record, we just need to say notice was given to Colmar that the process was placed in abeyance. Under normal circumstance, any information they would provide us and ask us to provide to you, we would normally do that. That wouldn't necessarily come with any evaluation, and whether or not the agency wants to have whatever information they provide evaluated would be something, again, we'd need to place on the agenda and ask what direction you'd like us to take.
Okay. Would my colleagues want this item put an agenda for the future discussion of this project, whether it be closed? I think we just want to put it on the agenda so we could discuss it. That's for the purpose of discussion.
I'm in favor of that.
Is that what you were going?
For purpose,
Ray?
yes, for purposes of discussion.
Just purpose
I think
of
we should
discussion.
comply with the Brown Act.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to do that to follow Brown Act issue. I think we should put that on the agenda so we could discuss whether or not the future discussions of this project is going to be in a closed session or an open session.
Okay.
So just,
And then the matter of their proposal that I haven't seen. I have seen their email saying we'd be getting something,
Okay.
but whether or not to have that further evaluated beyond making copies available to you, that would also need to go on the agenda if we were to do any formative work on it.
I think let's agendize that item and we will make a decision whether we
Okay.
want it or not.
Good.
So this way we can make a decision, but we can't make a decision now.
Okay.
I hope you understand, we can't do that. This is oral communication, it's not action
If I
item.
could just ask the one question, when would you anticipate putting this on the agenda?
Well, we're dark next week, and at this point, we won't be doing any evaluation. It'll just be the question of whether you want any further evaluation with respect to what they're calling their proposal. We'll place that on the meeting for the 29th, unless there's, I haven't looked at my tentative agendas, but the first time we could put it on.
You need to give me the 2-week rule waiver, but we could have it for the 29th.
Yeah, that's just a discussion of whether
It's
you
just
want
a
to have it
discussion.
further
We're
evaluated.
not taking
That's
any
not going to take much of a report, frankly.
We'll need to get you either from our previous memoranda, or we'll call that down into a single memorandum about the limits on closed session and the like. So you have that as well.
Sounds good, I think you got your answer.
Although, Mr. Chair, I am checking our agenda very quickly here. You have a number of items for your 2:30 meetings, both the redevelopment agency and 2 special meeting items and a joint meeting. So you've got the agency, housing is minutes only, but you're going to have joint city council, redevelopment agency, the options for discretionary review in the downtown specific plan area, a discussion of draft legislation establishing impact fees for parks and libraries.
How does June 5th look?
Yeah, because I'm saying the 29th looks awfully full. June 5th looks better, although you've got overview of your housing program budget and the design review for the United Cerebral Palsy facility on San Fernando on that day. But again, I don't know that this takes a lot of discussion. But it's up to you.
I think discussion is going to be much shorter because it's to discuss whether to discuss it or not discuss it. That's what it is. So it's basically, it's not a major point. But I think the 29th seems to be pretty heavy, so
It's very heavy.
let's do June 5th.
June 5th? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, oral communications closed. What's next, please?
Next is a business agenda. At 6A is a public hearing, Director of Development Services regarding BJ's Restaurant and Brewery, proposed project located at 101 North Brand Boulevard. At 6A1 is a motion approving the Stage 1 and 2 design for the facade modifications for the project, subject to comments and conditions from the city's principal urban designer and agency. At 6A2 is a motion approving a parking exception for 5 spaces with conditions.
Okay, and with that, I'll go to Mr. Starbird.
And I'll go to Phil Lanzafame for the staff report. Phil?
And I have a feeling he's going to Jackie Bar.
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, I am very pleased to present to you today this project at 101 North Brand Boulevard. Earlier this year, Chevy's vacated the site at the corner of Brand and Broadway. Having our corner at Main and Main, if you will, vacant is not conducive to good economic development. So we were very pleased when we heard that BJ's Restaurant and Brew House was going to take over the lease. The project that you have before you is merely a facade improvement. Because of the nature of the facade, they actually create some additional floor area, which triggers a parking requirement. They won't be using the floor area for any usable restaurant space, and there are plenty of spaces in the garage just adjacent. So we would recommend approval of the parking exception. The facade that you have before you starts to address many of the concepts that we put forward in the downtown specific plan. The building itself already started to do that with wide sidewalks for activity in front, the quality of building materials, the arcades that exist there, and the usability of those arcades. BJ's in their design has gone a step further. They've oriented the main entrance right at the corner. As I said, this is one of the most important corners in our downtown, and so having the entrance face that pays homage and respects that, the importance of that intersection. With the unique building borders, catty corner, with this project and the community bank building, we have three of the four corners that are very well designed and very attractive. On the other side, General Growth has made a comment of their intention to open up the Mervyn store, if you will, and start to have a presence on Brand Boulevard. So this becomes a very exciting intersection, and this is one of the pieces. The design, as I said, moves the building, the entrance to the corner. There's still a secondary entrance on Brand Boulevard, which respects that desire to have different storefront openings. I'll pass around to you. We had hoped to get multiple copies of this. It's a materials book that will tell you a little bit of the materials that are being used. The signage that you see represented on the rendering and the elevations are what are being proposed. The sign meet our sign code. BJ's at some point may want to come back and look at additional signage, but would do so under a variance. I will close the presentation, and if then you have specific questions, the BJ's team is here. But this is another first for Glendale, will be another first concept for a tenant, a business resident. This is a new urban model for BJ's Restaurant. Glendale will be the first location to showcase this model, and as I say, we're very excited to have this quality type restaurant come to Glendale. So with that, our staff, Jackie and Alan Loomis, who've been working with the BJ's team, are here to answer questions, as well as representatives from the restaurant themselves.
Any questions?
Staff is recommending approval of the parking exception and the facade design.
Okay. Senator Najarian.
I think in terms of the parking exception, that's no problem at all due to the high level of foot traffic and transit that's available. But is the parking garage at that 101 North Brand, is that fully spoken for, all the spaces used up there?
No, they're not. They are overparked for their code requirement.
Okay, so what is the effect of giving them a parking variance if there's sufficient parking within the structure that they're part of?
Our code requires that they have X number of spaces. Their lease allots them that many spaces.
I see.
There are still more parking spaces available to the general public in the garage, but their lease itself says you have this many. This creates a need for 5 more.
Okay.
And as I say, it won't be used by customers. There won't be any increase in use floor area but for customers that are driving in or out because of what will exist there, a reception booth and waiting area.
And I'd like to know what's on the menu.
It's coming.
I'll turn to the folks at BJ's for that.
Oh, I see, okay.
On the issue of the parking exception, and I think Hassan is here, Hassan Aghani, our Director of Planning, I think this is one of those items that we need to kind of do a little bit of a fine-tuning with the DSP, because there should be no reason for a parking exception, because this is one of those areas that you actually are not going to increase any traffic. It just, our code is written in such fashion that basically kicks in this parking requirement. So we may want to think about this and maybe modify it or change it. So on future facade modifications, we don't end up having to go through another parking exceptions. I mean, these are, because the average person on TV land watches this, goes, oh, yet another restaurant is getting another 5 parking spaces. Well, reality is, that space is not going to be occupied by anyone, but that's not how our code works. So I think we need to modify the code so future people don't have to go through it. The other question I have from the designer is, you have provided us with, yes?
Yes, I just wanted to remind the chair, you might want to open the public hearing before you take testimony from any members of the public or the
I'm not
developer.
taking testimony yet, I'm just comments.
Making comments.
Or comments that can become
Oh,
part of the
really?
public record.
Oh, okay,
under the
I'll
public
open the public
Thank
hearing on this. So do I have to make my comments again?
Please, no.
Oh, it doesn't count? All right. The other question is...
We'll incorporate those into the record.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The
like-
two material that you have provided, it's a silver material, and then there is the copper. In my drawings, is all of this in that copper material? Yeah. Your name for the record, please.
My name is Bob Lombardo. I'm the Vice President of Construction and Development for BJ's Restaurants.
Okay.
Thanks for your time. To answer your question specifically, it's copper and a stainless steel. It's an urban environment. We're at the ground floor of a 15-plus story building with very massive granite and heavy architectural features, and we were trying to incorporate elements of our prototype, yet also be able to stand up to the existing materials and textures that are there.
So everything I see in reddish color is copper?
Yes, is it
And
copper or
everything
copper?
else that is silver is actually stainless steel?
With the exception of, if you look a little bit towards the sides,
Yeah, right in here.
those are actually light boxes, so they're actually backlit with an alabaster, almost like a stone look. It's a plexi, thin, thick
I know.
material, but it gives that look of an alabaster backlit. So again, we've brought a very, what our opinion, an average-looking Chevy's restaurant to a very higher upscale premium casual is the segment we play in, and try to really talk to the corner and again bring a lot nicer elements to
And the
Glendale.
signage, is that a box light, or is it backlit, or how is?
They're all, again, the main signage on the front tower, and then also over the canopy on the side are backlit with letters that come through and with a neon. And then the reference to the variance, again, we're not looking for a whole lot more. We just want to talk to a little bit pedestrian traffic down here. We typically would have our restaurant and brew house letters sit on top of that light box element. Again, that's something we can discuss at a further time in the variance process, but we see those elements to the left, but because of the proportions of the building, we have to treat them a little bit differently on the right-hand side.
And when you talk about variance, you're talking about a variance for our signage?
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yes,
It's
sir.
not in front of us, but
Correct.
I don't know why it's not in front of us, but we could have.
We may not need it. At this point, we wanted to
We've
go
done them
in
all
with
at
what we
the same
felt
time.
was
Right.
appropriate, and then be able to assess and see if it's necessary.
Okay, and you're following the sign program?
Yes, sir.
On this building? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just might add that the sign variance, I believe, would go to the zoning administrator.
That's right, because
this is
we
an
have
existing
not,
building.
we have not, this is a good example of what we want to do, which is, simplify all this stuff. We could have just done that, but our code, well, sorry, you're too early for that.
Okay, we'll be back.
All right. Okay, is there anybody else would like to make any comments? Mr. Loomis, you have
Councilor?
comments? No? Mr. Weaver?
When the public hearing is closed, I'll make my
Oh, okay,
comments.
so,
I have some questions, actually. There's a very extensive liquor menu, but how about food? What is the...
Excellent.
What is the...
I eat in Burbank all the time.
what are your entrees?
We are first and foremost a restaurant, a family restaurant. We happen to serve handcrafted beer. Our roots are within pizza, deep dish pizza. We've been in the Southern California area since 1978 along the beach cities, Balboa, Belmont Shores, Laguna. We've expanded to this larger format back in '96. Also, the company went public at that point. We have 60 restaurants to date. Our menu items range from the original pizza, the handcrafted beer, which we brought in the '96 timeframe, amongst salads and seafood and steaks and ribs and
That was a question I
salads.
asked you originally. What is the general price of
The
your
price
entree?
point, our average price point is less than a Chili's. We're about $11 per person. So you can actually have a full-blown meal with all the appetizers and desserts, and your price point will be a little higher than that. But on average, we're about $11. And again, we're over 100 menu items. And as far as the liquor standpoint, we're well below the average. I believe, and again, we are public record right now, I believe we're down below the 20% mark on liquor. So we are not a bar. We're a restaurant that happens to serve handcrafted beer. We happen to have TVs that allow some sporting visual, but we do not put the music on or the sound on. It is first and foremost a family restaurant. Yes, they are. We donate a portion of our proceeds for the Pizookie, which is our handcrafted dessert, to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. We have over $1 million per year. So we're very much into the community and also, the charities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Closing the public hearing?
Public hearing is closed. Mr. Weaver.
You can sit down.
Okay.
For you youngsters and new people in town, back in the 40s and 50s, Broadway and Band was the center of town. Where Mervyn's was the Bank of America. Security was diagonal. Where I bought my comic books was behind the bookstore in the alley there. I think there was a Woolworths, another drugstore in the corner where you're going to be. So it always has been the center of town to the old-timers. I'm going to be very happy that I don't have to go to Burbank to have my Jeremiah read now. I can get it at Glendale. For those of you who haven't been there, big crowd of in the 20, 30-year-old bracket, but a lot of families come in there. It's one of the nice things about the restaurant. Every direction you turn, there's a TV on a sports channel. Having love sports, I mean, football season or whatever, there's multi-games going. And I don't know of any restaurants in Glendale that do that. I presume you will be jammed all the time. I've never been in there in Burbank where I didn't have to wait to get a seat. I presume that you will put some outdoor heaters on that space on Brand. That's going to help activate that area. That area was just sitting vacant, doing nothing. It wasn't good. So you're doing the right thing there. I'm kind of surprised or wondering, there's a vacant storefront on Broadway in the same building complex before you, is it past the driveway or what? It's a shell. It's been sitting there since...
West of the driveway.
West. It's been sitting there since day one. It's never been occupied, which is too bad. But I love it, and now I won't have to drive to Burbank. Parking will be easier. I won't have to valet park like I do in Burbank.
Is this leading to a motion?
I'm leading a motion of moving 6A 1 and 2. I'll be very happy.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, one last question. Will you open by Thanksgiving? Is that the goal?
That is our goal, yes.
I knew it.
The help of staff, that is...
They want that money through the holidays.
All right. Is there a motion and a second? Roll call.
Agency members Draymond.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Chairman Yusefian.
Aye. What's next, please?
Is there any agency member or staff comments?
Yes, I have one comment. I'm going to read the same item that Mr. Weaver read earlier. This is to inform the community that the redevelopment agency meeting of the May 22nd, 2007 will be canceled. Some members of the council who also serve on the GRA and the Housing Authority will be attending the annual International Council of Shopping Center Convention in Las Vegas, scheduled for May 20th through May 23rd, and as a result, there will be a lack of quorum for the meeting. Only a limited number of the items were forecasted for this date, and recently, and no item have been scheduled new items have been scheduled. We urge you to continue to check the posting agenda of the website for the items scheduled for May 29th and all upcoming meetings. Thank you very much.
And as I said before, as Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to reorganize the city in your absence.
And beware that Mr. Weaver will be reorganizing. He's taking it over. There'll be a revolution while we're gone.
Total control.
Total control.
Total control.
First time.
Right. Oh, you never know. He can change the charter while he's not here. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. We are adjourned.